my understanding of it is the starting point will be like a weekend program, maybe done on a Saturday or Sunday, done at this location in San Francisco called the Secret Garden. Um, then and there will be like things you'll be working on in terms of gardening or farming or agriculture, but also there'll be an academic strand of you could learn science or math, and that's the role that I would play at that place would be if there were parents who on a Saturday or Sunday needed tutoring. Um, that could be a person who's homeschooling like Dea, or a parent who's has their kid in the system but feels like their kid isn't learning anything. They could come come there and get assistance from somebody who might know that. And also, it was clear to me that this, like Dea said, it was there will be a chance for me to learn what would education be like if I were free. What would teaching and learning be like if I was actually free, as opposed to, as I've come to see as teachers, a kind of lower level priesthood of indoctrinators, which is what we are. That's what we played during the role. That really was exposed to me during this COVID time. Is we are low level, not high level priests, low level priests of indoctrination.
Welcome to What's Left, the weekly political discussion challenging the mainstream left. I'm Eduardo Barca with co-host teacher and socialist Sandy Lipson, rising teacher Jessica, and community organizing socialist Kenny Cepeda. We are online at what-s-left.webnode.com. You can find that link to our blog in the episode notes. You can also find our personal social media handles as at Don Eduardo Barca and at ZepDKE on Instagram, and Jess's Twitter handle as jhomie89. Please subscribe, rate, review, turn on your notifications, and share your favorite episode where we found this episode. Let's discuss today's discussion. The topic of today's discussion will be an interview with longtime organizer and very strong advocate, family advocate, Dheyanira, who we've had on What's Left before. To discuss the reopening of schools, to discuss various subjects such as immigration, her advocacy, as well as
the fact that her school was collapsing around her.
Yes, and as well as one of the strong organizing groups in the Mission District, Comité de las Madres Abya de la Misión, or Committee of the Mothers Abya of the Mission, as well as her founding organization, Entregarte, which has been a project of Dea for a very long time, and that we've discussed in a previous interview with Dea. Yeah. So welcome, Dea.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here again.
Yes, it's always a pleasure having you, and we're excited to this ongoing relationship we have with you and organizing effort that you've also had with Andy on offline of What's Left, and I hope that we can discuss further developments of what you've been doing since we've last spoken.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, and hi everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So maybe I can start. So I guess we've discussed a number of topics, related to, I guess, the COVID response first, right? And then, the issues regarding schooling was the last episode we recorded with you, and your observations of having your kid back in school and the challenges that came up about that. And so I think today we're interested in discussing the steps you've taken after that, last episode, and because you are homeschooling your kid at the moment, right? And so yeah. We want to get into that and get a sense of how that's going, what it has taken for you to get to that point. And so maybe if you can share, where are you at right now with your kid? What's happening with your kid in terms of his education?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right. I after a long year, last year in person after the pandemic, in person school, which it was really a nightmare. I decided just to pull my kid out of the system. There was not going to be a way that I'm gonna send my kid back to school, of course, to that school where he was attending, or any other school in the system. I decided that I really didn't know how the homeschooling situation was going to be, but the only thing I knew is that I'm not gonna send my kid back to school. That was, that was the only thing that I knew for sure. So after coming back from summer, I decided, I mean, I have been part of the different groups of the freedom, basically the freedom groups. One of those is the group of families that are actually homeschooling even before, before me. And I did have an experience. I mean, I tried to work with a few of those families, basically one family that was also doing the same thing, trying to homeschool one of his, his the teenager son that this family had. That didn't work out. So I basically ended up doing it alone, by myself. And Andy was helping me with that, guiding me, giving me some guidance around what to follow, what to do, some resources about science and math. And then basically my strong support and my connection with people that are doing something different and getting kids out of school, and creating new alternatives, is basically people in Latin America. I am connected with a group, not only a group of families that are doing this, a group of people that are already creating and building alternatives, but basically I am getting trained. I'm studying a 3-year program in a university, which is called Freedom University, to train the new or the adults that are going to be helping out, supporting kids in their learning. It is not longer called teacher, because we believe we don't teach, we learn together with kids. And basically that's the way where we are right now. Everyone, we really need to be aware of everything that we have been teach or conditioned or not teach, and then relearn. We need to learn to unlearn and then learn again about almost about everything, right? Basically about the system and how we in general have been stalling our lives, have been stalling our time, and the just learning that. I mean, I think we are in a time of transition for everything, and education is one of those systems that we are questioning, and we are basically facing the collapsing of the system, and our kids are the ones that are suffering, we are the ones that are suffering, and there's no other option and for us. So we need to look for something else. We, the working families, the working people, we don't have the financial resources to just switch to a private school as easily as the people who have money. And in most cases, not even that option is really a good fit for us. So we really need to be building something new for us that can actually meet our needs. And I just decided that I'm gonna do it, and that was the reason why I joined the program in Latin America. And we are studying together, we are learning together, basically. And it's interesting because I'm learning from people that have been doing this for decades in other countries, and I'm learning from, it's the move is, I think I feel it's a movement that is growing, and I'm very excited about that, because I'm here in the United States, and I can also keep being the voice. for our community and for our families, so we can communicate what's going on and what's happening in our community.
Okay, I have a couple questions, but I think maybe I'll just start from like the more personal lens of like this really big decision that you made to actually pull your kid out, and then maybe we can expand, because I want to hear more about like the organization and more about this process of kind of like unlearning in collaboration with other people, some who sounds like have been doing it a long time, and then other people who are maybe like just kind of jumping into the deep end, I guess, like you are. But so I think I have a really clear sense, Dea, from the last episode and just hearing, everything the past couple years about why the school system is unacceptable and why you would pull your kid out and like what you don't want from an education system. But I'm curious, like as a mom jumping into this, like what's your primary sort of, or starting out, I guess, when you first pulled your son out, like what was your primary goal in terms of what you do want to create, either like on a small scale, like immediate future, or because I imagine it's really overwhelming. Like, let me just teach all the subjects, with your, I'm sure, unlimited free time. It's not like you're, organizing and, working and all of this, right? We're all working with such limited resources, I feel like. So yeah, like what's your like primary goal with the homeschooling?
Okay, the main reason for me to take this decision and to pull my kid out of the school is his safety. So for me, just the fact that I had my kid here and he's no longer has to go to a place that is unsafe, and I don't have to be worried about if he's doing okay or is not okay. Most of the time, basically during the school, this last year, during the in-person year of school, we couldn't really focus on the academic progress or what's learning or nothing, not even, I mean, that's basically the situation is so horrible that the school, this system, it became something different, because that's not even within the system what a school should be. A school is supposed to be an institution where the kids go, quote unquote, to learn. We are now know that they are not learning. They are not learning what they need. They are learning to obey and to follow instructions. Basically, they are being indoctrinated. But we didn't even have that, right? We just had a place that's full of violence, and the violence that's coming from the institution, because they are not even providing the resources that they are supposed to provide, because they are taking our money from the taxes, and we didn't have that. We didn't have teachers. Teachers were absent for weeks, and kids were with what's it called? I even forgot the name for the substitutes. Yeah, kids work with substitutes that usually didn't even know about the subjects or anything. They didn't even have experience to work with kids. And especially kids from the brown and black community. Kids were completely. I mean, in my opinion, kids and parents, we were basically completely disrespected and treated with completely mistreated. So I cannot call that school. That's not a school. And the sad part is that many people, many kids, and not kids, young people from here, because I'm not from here and I am an immigrant, right? They told me, this has been happening for decades. I mean, that's how the system treats brown and black students. it's just that, I'm learning right now. Of course, it was worse after the pandemic, but this is the situation. This is what happens with Black and brown students. And that was completely unacceptable. I mean, I couldn't leave my kid in an environment like that, in an institution that is just basically a pre-jail system.
But can you also then answer the question of what you were hoping to come out of the experience, though?
Oh, that basically was my first, the main purpose, to have my kids safe, and then to have the time to be learning, right? Learning, and he really loves math. And I didn't even know where he is in math, what he learned, what he is, where is the progress, what happened. We knew that during the Zoom, they didn't learn anything. Nothing happened during that time. Only depression and isolation, but no learning at all. So my goal was to go back to pre-COVID and start learning what he knows, what he doesn't know, where we are, because we didn't even know where they are, right? Teachers, as I told you, the horrible situation at school, of course there was no communication. Teachers never answered the emails. I mean, it was just really bad. So that was my goal, to start helping my kid to just to get a base of from where we are and where we can keep going, right? So then we had the discussion with Andy and just figuring out how am I going to do this 8th grade level when I don't even know. I mean, the only last thing I knew from a teacher was when he was in 5th grade before the pandemic. So figuring that out, it was basically the 2 first months. And then from there, we had the meeting with Andy. We have been discussing about that. You helped me with resources, and I basically, I think I was lucky that my son really loves math and he enjoys doing math. So I just started doing the working, printing out the material and working with him. And then I did have some resources, some materials in Spanish that I brought back from Ecuador. The level that he should be reading in Spanish, right? For math, for science, but in Spanish. So I did have that, but I needed also to get those resources in English because the education is supposed to be in English. That helped me a lot. And then I have been finding other resources little by little. So now we are doing, now is some more relaxed time, but now I know that we need to be reading, writing, and doing math. And I think we have figured, we did figure this out together. And we also are, we learned that, I'm learning that if we do like 30, 45 minutes with math, then he moves to do music. He is getting ready he wants to apply for the School of Arts and is going to do it for music. So he is just practicing and getting ready for his audition. But more than anything, what I saw is being in a relaxed and safe environment. He's learning, but after doing some of the academic work, some of math or writing, he moves to the art thing, to music or building something with Legos, things like that. So I'm just learning, right? Learning and learning with him together. So we are learning together.
It's interesting, Bea, you say you've taken your son out of school for his safety. Most people would wonder what kind of safety. I think you've laid out what was that those concerns you had in school. Do you think that it would? What is your analysis of public education? Not just in your school, but like let's move back, like not just from your school, but just in public education as a whole.
As a whole, okay. Through the training that I'm going right now, at this university, Universidad Libre in Argentina, we're discussing about all of those aspects, and we all are learning what the public system is and where it's coming from. The public system that we have here, which is the same system that we have all over the world, is a system that was created 200 years ago when the Industrial Revolution happened, and they needed workers, so they needed to train the workers for the industry. Um, it, and it didn't change for 200 years. It has not changed. So right now, many people has been writing books about this, writing books about what education should be, why this education system is doing more damage than actually good. And it and it goes to every single level of the system, right? What about curriculum? What about the teachers? What about how the complete system is working for the industry, for the corporations, for the elites, but not really for us, because it's not teaching to think. It's teaching to follow orders. It's teaching to obey. And how is a system that is producing the workers and taking away your identity? It's not a system, it's a system that kills creativity. It's a system that is telling you you need to forget about yourself. You need just to follow orders, right? And it's interesting to see how that system has worked very well. And more than anything, one of the main people that has been discussing about these things, and it's actually from Mexico. He mentions in one of his lectures that the public education system, it is the most is the system that is maintaining the segregation and the discrimination in the system, and that's true. And right now, through my experience that I have faced here in San Francisco, I can say that that's true. And the data right now, I'm just reviewing the data. It's very new, the data about the results after the tests. The new data that we have, the 2022 data, is reflecting that. We have the African Americans and the Latinos at the very bottom of that, that graphic, where it's reflecting what is happening and how the system keeps the brown and black people down. Only 70% of the students, the African American students, have met the standards for English, and only 9% of the African American students have met the standards for math. For the Latinos, only 28% of the students have met the English standards, and only 18% of the students, that Latino students, have met the math standards. Asian and white students, 70% of the students have met English, and around the same percentage for math. So we see, the data is there, and is always the same. After year after year is the same. So it's like, for people that do not really want to see what it is, I don't know what else they want. That's the proof. That's the proof. So it's completely proven that the system is not working for people of color, and it's time for a change.
I guess the question I have is, so part of me for this episode is thinking that it's kind of for parents who are thinking of potentially leaving the system to themselves and homeschooling. So based on your own experience in starting the homeschooling process and experience, what are some of the crucial things that a parent who's considering that needs to be prepared for? What are some of the things what kind of advice would you give them in getting started so that they could be successful?
Parents are, and I was very, very afraid at the beginning, because you don't really know what is going to be. I mean, the parents really want for their kids the best for their kids. They want them to have education, because that's the belief and that's basically the lie that we have had, that if you get education, you will be doing better, which is actually not true. I mean, that's basically something that we, the ones that had education, are facing also right now. I mean, many of us have gone to the university, we have university level studies, but what they the promises that they said, if you go to a university, you will be better, and that's not true. So that's one thing. So parents in general, and especially for the working families here, are very afraid. Are very afraid because they really believe that giving education to the kids, it will be the way to have a better life. And that's the reason why the immigrants are here, to give a better life to our kids, right? So we really need to educate parents. And the education is basically going through the same training that I'm going through right now, learning from other people that have been doing this for decades now. For example, people in Nicaragua that have been working, building an alternative education since the 80s, when the war for revolution was happening. It was, that happened basically because of that, because of the living conditions of the people, and the imposition from the empire that is just making our lives miserable. So I have met people in other countries in Latin America that are already working and doing that experience, and it's beautiful. So that's what we need to do. We need to be building, but for us, we need to build it. When I had a question from someone else, a group of homeschool people that are doing in Berkeley, and I was joining them, we were discussing about this, right? What is how they feel, what they want. The homeschool people, the homeschool families usually feel very isolated, because it's very isolating thing. And I told them, if I could not do a homeschooling. If I could have more people, I could have a community, a learning community, where we can work together and learning in a community, because the homeschooling is not really for me, and it's not really the solution for us. We need to have a community, a learning community, and that's something that we need to be building together. And that's what I'm trying to do. For my son, of course, he doesn't want to do homeschooling. He wants to go back to school because he wants to be with friends. I mean, that's happening with the teenager age kids. They want to be with their kids. They want to be with friends. I mean, it's the age that you want to be with friends. You don't want to be at home. You don't want to be with your parents anymore. But he understands that we need to do this for this year, so he can be actually learning, right? And getting ready for his application for the high school time.
So I'm just curious, like, in this program that you're doing, are some of those people, like the more experienced ones, for instance, are they coming from a place where they have not just homeschooled their kids, but they've done it in like more of a collaborative setting? And what, like, I'm sure it ranges, but what does that look like? I'm assuming the program's online, because you said it's
this program is online, but every single one of those, I mean, the students are some of them are already working in some program, or are trying to build something, or there are parents that, like myself, that are doing this because we want to basically take the education on our own hands. I mean, our kids' education, right? But the instructors and the people who are putting together this program, they are people with experience. They have been building freedom schools or learning communities in different places. Yes, yeah, they have experience in this.
So I'm curious as to any sort of difficulties with like the forces of the state, because like I was just thinking of people like Kamala Harris, our vice president, that how she once was flaunting her power, and persecuting parents that didn't take their kids to school. So, I'm curious about like maybe the legal or logistical
Yeah.
aspects. Like, who do you have to report to? Do they still have an eye on you, like the state, or how does that work?
No, in California, I mean, there are certain legal things that you need to do, but in United States and in California, homeschooling is legal. It's your right, and you can do it. You just need to know how to do it. So there are letters that you need to send. You need to file an affidavit. You need to get all the records from your kid. I mean, yes, you need to tell them that you are enrolling your kid because your kid will be, there are certain things that you need to do, but it's nothing difficult. You just need to do it, just file some paperwork and that's it.
And I do have a follow-up question on that, because like you talked about, the system is built for a purpose, like to prepare workers for exploitation, basically. We
Yeah.
did that in this show, and so you're talking about your kid going back to school, right? Like a more formal setting.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's still testing that he has to be subjected to, or is it?
Not right now, no. Because we are doing still middle school, is not, it's not that that hard, that strict or that hard. If he could be, let's say he keeps homeschooling for high school, then if he wants to go for college, then yes, they need to do the testing. But for middle schools, no.
They are so. You said that you're trying this year, but then your son will go into a public school for high school.
Yeah.
Why not continue homeschooling?
Because he doesn't want it. I'm
I
telling
see.
you, this is the high school. I mean, it's already the
Yeah.
ages that kids wants to be with friends. That's the reason why I'm working on building a learning community, so I can keep working on, building this, and eventually, if he goes back and for some reason he doesn't like, he can decide, okay, I can just go out again of this, and it's just
Yeah.
building. We really need to build what is going to be the alternative. It's the same for the parents. You can tell them, you can explain everything, but if they don't see something, they won't do it because they are afraid. They want to see something, right? So if you have something that's already working, you can show them. You can show them, and you can say, okay, you don't need to be there if you don't want. There is other options. Here is one of those, right?
Yeah.
Dan, can you talk a little bit about your vision for the learning community? I mean, I feel like you've kind of given us like the broad brushstrokes, but yeah, will you talk more about
Okay.
how you do that, like what you want to build?
Okay. And there is one example that I can give you, and probably you can also check it out online because I think they already have even a website. My vision here is to be building a learning community that's something like the Unitierra in Oaxaca. And after after listening and learning about different programs and different alternatives from Argentina, from Ecuador, from Mexico, this one is the one that I really I think is the one that it will be a very good fit for us, for the composition of the community here in San Francisco. And I want to go there. I want to, after my kid is done with the audition for the School of Arts, I'm trying to plan. I mean, I'm planning to see if we can I can take him there, for us, both of us can be learning different things. I mean, just to experience it, right? And to get even more connection and to really learn on the ground at the field how it is. I'm connected through them with people here in California. There is a Dheyanira Calahorrano here. We do have one. We are just getting connected, and I'm very excited that we will be initiating the work. Andy was already in a meeting with him and with one of the moms, and we discuss about the work that we want to do, and it's basically getting together and doing the work. We will be basically learning as it goes, right? That's how it is, because something new is completely new. This is kind of an experiment, and it's just like putting together the pieces and okay, let's see what's gonna happen. Landy is one of those those pieces.
Yeah, and just to put my understanding of it is the starting point will be like a weekend program, maybe done on a Saturday or Sunday, done at this location in San Francisco called the Secret Garden. Then and there will be like things you'll be working on in terms of gardening or farming or agriculture, but also there'll be an academic strand of you could learn science or math, and that's the role that I would play at that place would be if there were parents who on a Saturday or Sunday needed tutoring. That could be a person who's homeschooling like Dea, or a parent who's has their kid in the system but feels like their kid isn't learning anything. They could come and come there and get assistance from somebody who might know that. And also, it was clear to me that this, like Dea said, it was there will be a chance for me to learn what would education be like if I were free. What would teaching and learning be like if I was actually free, as opposed to, as I've come to see as teachers, a kind of lower level priesthood of indoctrinators, which is what we are. That's what we played during the role. That really was exposed to me during this COVID time. Is we are low level, not high level priests, low level priests of indoctrination. And so I feel like I need to learn, and I'm hoping, by participating in this, that I would be in a better situation to be able to participate in the kind of thing that Dea is talking about.
Is there any interest from like teachers, like teachers? I mean, obviously the role of the parent and the teacher starts to kind of merge, I imagine, in these settings. But is Andy like the rarity?
As Andy said, we have been discussing about how to get to the parents that might be interested in leaving the system, but again, because of there's nothing out there, people do not do it. I mean, because they are afraid. So one of the things that we always have needed, and now we need it even more than any other time, is the tutoring and math tutoring, English tutoring. And we have been discussing about this from last year, to create a tutoring program so we can help and we can actually bring the families right together, because it's a need that we have. So if we can meet that need, we can have the families together and we can start the discussion, actually, because we really need to be. I think this is the kind of a process of democratizing the the discussion about around the education, because at the school system they don't listen to you, they don't care about you, they don't care about what you have to say. They don't want to have. Basically, I felt they have the kids as hostages. They don't want to have anything to do with the parents.
And just to say, that question about the rarity, there's another person who I ran into, but again, there are people in the freedom community who you'll run into who would be interested in doing this. In fact, that last Wisdom Warrior meeting I went to was one where I met another teacher who was in that Zoom call that I had with Dea, and she's an artist. Now her background is in architecture, but she worked and did art with students, and so she takes essentially she takes things we would put in the trash and turns them into construction projects. She can make wallets and clothing and bag. I mean, she can just do all sorts of things with plastic bags. And she also does some things with wood. And she comes at it from very much from a materials standpoint, like not looking at it as just garbage, but what are the materials there, and then what could be built from it. So she and I, when we met, talked about how we could combine her understanding of materials with the idea of doing science projects or even math projects. Could we integrate that into this? But I think my feeling is there's not many people in the institution of the priesthood that are thinking this way. It's all the people who've been kicked out. The second thing I would say is this person themselves, even though they're an experienced teacher, doesn't have a credential. So that credentialing program is part of that system that says you're in and you're out. And credentialing is something that I think doesn't matter at all.
No. But even though it doesn't matter at all, we do have more people that really have credentials, that have the all certifications, and they don't want that anymore. And they have been working to change and to help the ones that have been working hard to change this. So we do have another of the persons. So that part of the team is one of the teachers from Luminary Village, and then the new person, the one that you met, he is university teacher. So actually, there are many people that it's just that I think we are so dispersed. And through this, that's the reason why I'm calling this a learning community, because I think it's a way to be connecting the people that are doing something to change this, because we know that is not working.
So you're part of the Comité de las Madres Aviala, correct?
Yeah.
And de la Misión. How many other parents from that community are doing homeschooling?
No, it's only me.
It's only you?
It's only me, yeah.
How do they respond to this step that you took? Like, are they curious, or what is their response?
Well, they are not that curious about it. One of the moms has her middle schooler in a private school because of the same reasons, right? So she decided to take the kid to the private school because everybody knows that middle school is just, that's the problem. The other mom, she has the kids at Everett School. It seems it's a little bit better, but it still is, the same situation. But she's that's the reason why I'm saying they are afraid. They are afraid. They know, they see what's going on, but they are afraid. When we had this meeting and we were discussing, we have been having some meetings to keep moving with this. She said, right now, maybe, this, what you are doing right now, families might not think that it might not have the impact right now on the families, but it will have in the near future when they really realize that the system is just, it keeps collapsing. It's not getting better, it's just getting worse and worse. So I think that's the reason why we need to keep building, so we are ready once the families are ready to jump out of the system and to, so you can be there.
Yeah, that was my question around the Comité. What are the developments as you are? Maybe I'm not trying to stray away from the topic that we're having, but you are part of the Comité de las Madres, and you are also part of Integrarte. What are the recent developments around your two um, advocacy groups, as well as just outside the box kind of groups, because they're not really a part of the system?
Yeah. Okay, with the moms, we keep together, we keep having meetings. Basically, the homeschooling situation is in this case it is an individualized choice, right? It's individual choice, and I think what is happening is that they are seeing it. I mean, I guess they are, even though they don't tell me anything, but they are seeing what's happening, right? The kids, of course, I mean, some of the kids, they are not going to school. Sometimes they are skipping school because the school, as I said, the school is short. It's just trash. It's boring and it's not safe. Teachers are not, same thing, the same story, right? But they don't take they don't take the final decision to say, okay, I'm gonna do homeschooling. And what I'm hearing from, especially from one of the moms, is that because we don't have the resources, we cannot do that. And that was one of the statements at one of the meetings that we had. And I just said, okay, look, right now, I don't have those resources, but I'm doing it, right? And I understand it's different because I do have more. I might not have the economic and financial resources right now, but I do have other resources because I know I have university studies, so I have those those kind of resources that also you need to have if you're gonna be doing homeschooling. But I just told her, look, that's the reason why I keep working on building this learning community, because not having the financial resources doesn't mean that we cannot do it. We can do it and we have to do it, but we need to do it as a community. And that's the reason why I keep working and pushing for this. And I keep working on, step by step. I know it's a long process, it's a slow process, but step by step, keep building the work of Integrarte, because that was the beginning. And I just have to keep doing that, and I'm doing that. And part of it is the new program at the Secret Garden that we are going to be doing. And the moms, of course, want to do that. I mean, we're happy that we are going to be planting medicinal herbs, and we will be learning about ancestral medicine. And, during the time that we are there, Andy will be with us doing tutoring and learning this new way of learning, of free learning. So, because we do have the more experienced person that have been already working in Oaxaca about this autonomous learning. So some people are more advanced in this, some people have more experience, but we all are learning because we have been in the system for 200 years. I mean, we just need to be constantly checking ourselves, and it's just, it's for the rest of your life that you're going to be unlearning and learning. It's just that you need to realize what it is, what you are, the product of the system, and what is that they made with what they did with you, what you have been part of the conditioning that we have been subjected to, and how to get out of that. So
I just wanted to press on one thing you said just a minute or a couple minutes ago about like having university education. being necessary. And I think I know what you mean. I understand why that would be helpful, especially in the beginning, like trying to create this transition and build what
Yeah.
you're trying to build. But I guess I want to like maybe challenge that a little bit. Like, do parents really need that? I mean, for the
The
vision that you're
parents, the
talking about.
parents don't need that, but for someone that does not have any resources, I mean, other parents that do not have that, but they have the money, they are not teaching their I mean, they are not helping the kids. They are paying someone else that is basically providing that what the kids need. They don't need that. But the thing is that you really need to understand several. I mean, in my case, I was able to understand all how the system is working basically because, of course, because I wanted to understand. I was looking for that information. I was looking for the people. I was looking for that. But in in my case, in my own personal case, by the training that I had as a pharmacist back in my country, and I did learn how to work using the scientific method. That helped me to basically that's helping. Those skills are helping me right now to do what I'm doing right now because it's just a mindset that I have because I have been working with experimentation, because I have been working in a lab. So those kind of things are the things, the skills that are helping me right now. I'm not saying the parents need to have that, but it's just something that's helping me right now. And I do understand that not any mom in part of the community, they are gonna do that because they don't have those skills that I did learn and all the experiences that I was looking for it, right? They don't have it. So of course they are not going to be able to do it alone. So that's the reason why I keep saying we need to be building a learning community. So if we are part of a learning community, a parent doesn't need to learn. It doesn't need to know that, and they will be bringing other skills. They will be bringing other experiences. But this is the transition that we are living right now. This is a transition time, and we are basically building it, right? So that's what I'm saying. Not that the parents need to have that. It's just that right now that's been very useful for me that I'm doing this right now.
And I guess it's more of a comment to this conversation, because it sounds from what you're describing there that the learning is not just for the kids, it's for the parents, it's for the community. And so, and like you mentioned before, there's different people at different stages with different skills. Because like I know, for example, college educated people that don't know shit about farming.
Exactly.
And there's people that like know all about like growing stuff naturally because of the ancestral knowledge that they can teach that, right? But
Yep.
it's, and I think part of the process is like unlearning these hierarchies, right, in a
Yep.
society. Because like as we know in our system, certain things are rewarded and others are not. Other are like the knowledge of the field, right? You're not gonna make money at all if you have that, unless it's like a agro business and stuff. But that's what like really catches my attention about this project, because and it does require some people to get going. But I think there is also the aspect of empowering others who, because you mentioned before there, like when the COVID questioning was happening, right, the narrative, like I remember you mentioning that some people were looking up to you, right, because you had the education and you were trying to like say no, like it's not just about that, like like, and I think that's part of like this process, and it's something that we have to navigate, because like yes, like in order to challenge the system, you do need some people that know how the system works. um but I mean, I think that's the sense that I'm getting, like this is a collective effort. And
Yes, exactly, and that's the only way that we the working people can do it. Otherwise we can't, because the homeschooling is it's for the homeschooling families, the homeschooling people is the homeschooling movement here is very white and middle class people, because they do have the resources so they can pay someone else that are going to be teaching their kids, right? That's not a model for us. We cannot have it. We cannot do that because we don't have the money to do it, and it's not what we want, because sometimes homeschooling is just basically same thing that they are doing in school, just outside at home, and that's not what we want. We really want an alternative. We really want something different, and especially for the descendants of the original people of the Americans. We wanna have the knowledge of the ancestral I mean, basically the ancestral knowledge has to be part of our education, part of our learning. That is something that needs to be at the core of this. We have been discussing about that too, and that's something that we really want to.
I have a question. I don't know if you want to, keep it here, but I am curious, because I know you were having issues, right, with your job when this whole COVID thing happened, and then, and like, in order to do these things, in order to do research, it does require, some the time, right? It does require energy, and depending on your level of or your ability to have an income, that would impact how much you can participate in this stuff.
Yep.
And how have you managed that? And like, how much of a barrier is this to other people? And I guess what I'm saying is that, in my view, there is no way to, just focus on that, because there's other things that influence with it. You can build a community like this, right? Because one, I guess, how have you navigated this period in your life? Maybe if you can share where you're at now, and are these conversations had regarding the people who are not there maybe at the moment in these spaces?
Yes, that's a really good question. So that's the reason I'm going to answer to that question, and this is actually the reason why I told one of the moms who was saying that because we don't have the resources, we cannot do it. This because right now I am the example of, yes, we can do it. I have to work. I'm working part-time. I'm working at night some days, and I'm working during the weekends. And it's really, really hard stuff, but I'm doing it. So no one can tell me that we cannot do it because I'm doing it. And it's really, really tough. And, I'm trying to just keep thinking about what else we can do. How can I basically generate the income to keep doing this? And that's the reason why I'm saying step by step, and even though it's a very slow process, getting into the I have been doing the work, and everything that I'm doing is just going to the direction of keep building the work for Integrarte, because that's my goal, to start working full-time on that, because the work of Integrarte is basically the organizing, community organizing, the tutoring, the art, music for the community. So it is hard, and I as I told you, I didn't know how this is going to be and how am I going to do it when I started, but I'm doing it. I mean, I'm working at night some days and I'm working during the weekends. And we are also, trying to create a business. I mean, we are thinking, we are doing some things here and there. And once again, this is the reason why we really need to be building a community, because I know that's one of the barriers for the working families. They cannot just say, I'm not going to work and I'm going to be homeschooling, because if we do that, we are not going to have money to pay the rent, the money for the food, we won't be able to survive. But if we do it as a community, is completely doable. Yeah. And I'm meeting people that had experiences doing this work, but again, back in Latin America. So I guess because I have been looking and looking, and I actually meeting the people. We might not be many people, but I think we already have a good group of people that we can have a team to start working with this.
Yeah, I have a question for you that you brought up Latinos and African Americans. What would you say is more connection for you? Is it like, do you see more when you said you worked with other uh, families that were homeschooling? Were they, do you, were, you said that they had differences, we had differences. Do you see yourself more aligned with them as a worker, or you see your difference in being Latina and being Ecuadorian? Is your which identity is, I guess, where you stand
Uh,
by when you are seeing yourself in spaces when you're doing political action?
I guess the main difference is about the being a worker, being from the working class. You know, the other families are from the middle class, and then they are very friendly. They are very nice. I have been sharing spaces with them. They are very welcoming, but we just have different needs, and that's you know, I I think I see where we can work together and we could be, you know, and I think it's important to do those to open those spaces and to have those communities together. I think it could be something that we really need to do or work. Um, but is the main differences are the needs. We have different needs, and we really need to be working on meeting our needs first, and they sometimes don't have those needs. So that's there's a kind of a gap there. We can share spaces, we can be in the meetings, we can have, you know, yeah, we can be together sometimes, but we cannot really work together. Maybe once we have the community, the learning community, and we have some programs developed, they will be happy to come and enjoy the programs, some of the programs, but I don't see really building together with them. Not right now.
I mean, and to be specific about it, I guess, and this came up. Dea talked with some folks from the National Coalition for Health Integrity, who were working around the homeschooling stuff. And while they were in connection with some families who were Spanish speakers or from Central or South America, it did seem that the resource question was a little different for the families they were working with than the ones that Dea were. At the same time, it does appear like that one of the people at the NCHI did have like a curriculum that was around that could be potentially used in the spirit garden.
Yeah, Secret Garden.
Secret garden. And so that I think is there's possibilities of sharing of resources for education to be shared. But I do think there does seem that there's what I would say is that I think that group NCHI will learn from Dea's experience of this organizing that she's doing in this, because I think they just don't know because they're not in the same place. I would disagree with Dea when you say that that they're hiring tutors. Like most of these families are all doing very similar things to what you're doing, which is they're educating their own kids for the same reason that you are. Is maybe they come more from the right wing perspective, but they see schools as indoctrination camps that they wanted to get their children out of. And there was the question of the medical stuff for some of these families as well. But I think the one thing that they had was maybe a sense of, well, the kind of enough internal confidence to say, because they had been partially educated from the system, to say I can leverage that to give my own child a boost. But I think the difference here is really that framework that you talked about saying that we're all learners now. If you come from that framework where we're all learners, then I agree with Jessica. Then that question of whether you have a formal education or not disappears actually. And then it's like, well, what do we want to learn? Because maybe our children or the people that are our kids are making more advances in math, so they come back and teach the parent, on some of those things. But it's an exploration, nevertheless. And so, how do we find the resources to learn the things we want to learn, and how do we decide what we want to learn? And that's where I do think the real thing that's missing, in my opinion, is something that's actually missing in not just an educational thing. I feel like it's missing in some of the freedom communities altogether, which is the idea that we are going to have to decide to do this on our own. We are going to have to decide to build something of our own. And I think across the board, there is a lack of confidence that we can do that. So we still find ourselves staring at, Web3 or staring at FTX or staring at these various things that are happening in the world and trying to understand them. But while at the same time being paralyzed from, like, one of the biggest things I heard from some of the luminaries was we got away from looking at all the bad shit that was happening and started to decide, what do we need to do for ourselves? And that, I think, is the kind of move that I think is actually still a struggle in all the places I've been organizing. And I'm still struggling to make that move myself. But that's where I do think people have to move to. And that's not just for the families you're working with. I think that's across the board within the working class, the middle, everyone who's facing this lacks the confidence to believe we can build an alternative collectively.
Well, there's a million reasons not to do it, and I really appreciate, Dale, like the way that you recognize the class divide, right? Like even between some of these, I'm assuming white middle class families and then working class black and brown families. But at the same time, you're like, I'm not going to just sit around and like bathe in excuses. You're like, I'm doing it. So it can be done. And I think, yeah, that really speaks to the confidence thing that I think Andy's speaking to. Because I agree. I mean, and I think that's the case in so many different areas. It's not just education, where it's like, we're all talking about how like we want a different system and maybe we can even envision it, but there's always like 1,000 reasons why you can't do it in that moment. So yeah, not a question, but super cool. I think too, like with the tutoring and stuff, I mean, I don't know. I have had a little exposure to homeschooling, and I think, I mean, in the long run, it's going to be better because like you don't want to just end up like recreating a version of what already exists, and maybe it has like some freedom flair to it, right? But like this idea of like, oh well, we can do it at home, we can do it outside the institution, but like we'll just have like a math tutor from 8 to 9, and then we'll have a science tutor from 9 to 10, right? And like you end up just between the scheduling and the class divide and the credentials and then all of the state oversight, right, which is more heavy-handed in some place than others. Like I do happen to know Washington is one of the toughest states in terms of like they make it really hard. You can do it, like you said, people do it, but I know like that stuff's a barrier. But yeah, I mean, like it makes it hard in the short run, but in the long run, I think it's going to be better, whatever you end up building, because it's not going to just be like a sort of poor imitation of this horrible institution that already exists.
Yeah, the main difference of having the kids at the system and having the kid out of the system is the conditioning. I mean, this is basically the first step, and it takes really long time. People said that it will take probably a year for a kid to completely kind of change and get rid of what the mindset that they are having at school, or the schooling thing is they they lose the creativity, they lose, basically they are losing their identity, and they learn to do things that they are being told to do. If no one is telling them what to do, they don't do anything because they don't have the initiative, they don't have the creativity, it's gone. So the what is the freedom education, or the freedom to learn, is basically to learn what you like, what you want. If you do not do what you like, what you want, then you are not learning. You're just repeating wherever you need to repeat, or wherever you are being told, but you are not learning. And this is basically the conversations that we have with my kid, because sometimes my kid is telling me, he has told me, I'm not learning anything. I probably will be learning more if I could be at Everett School. I'm not learning anything. And then we have these conversations and we have these debates, and it's like I told him, okay, wherever you were giving at school, you don't remember anything right now, right? So you didn't learn anything, and you wouldn't be learning anything there because you didn't even have teachers that were going to school. Most of the time you were just running through the halls at school. And it's like, you're right. But he's already, so many years. It takes years, and he has so many years of being at school that he already thinks that he's learning when he has a teacher in front of them and he is just being told what to do. That's learning for him, but that's not learning. So it takes a while for you to find the ways and find the ways you learn and the ways they learn, because each one of us are learning in our own unique ways, and finding that's basically our job. And it is as Andy said, I need to learn how to learn, basically, right? And it's basically finding your own way, finding your own unique way, and it's finding what is that you like. And even adults are looking for that, and they pay for coaches, and they pay for, it's basically that's what it is.
I gotta hop out, guys. I'm
Yeah.
sad to end of this. But this was awesome, and I can't wait to listen to the end of it.
Bye, Jess.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
See you, Jessica.
Bye.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, I've fostered a child, a former student that went to public school and then went to a charter school, then went to a private school, Catholic school, and then a Christian private school, and finally decided to homeschool the last 2 years. And we went abroad. And so I relate a lot to what you say there when you say that your child kind of has this desire to go back to public school because of his friends, and then also saying like, well, what am I learning at home? It's this constant struggle as well with your relationship with your child. And in my case, it was the socialization aspect that was really important, the peer pressure, this hanging out with peers, and then different methods I had to try, whether it was a charter school, whether it was elementary school, well, that was before me, that whether it was a private school, and then homeschooling. And it was different things I had to try out, where we eventually went to England and we stayed with people who were part of like a freedom movement as well. They were called the Unschooling movement. And I just know that I learned over time, and maybe you'll discover this, maybe you can share from this, whatever comes up for you as I'm sharing, Dea, that what I found was the education by the standards of public education, I decided not to follow, which was more important for me reading, not because reading was important to meet a standard, but reading material such as reading novels and reading uh, political work, political pieces, reading articles, watching documentaries, writing about that, having critical thinking skills, and then doing maths, but not doing math because of meeting a standard. We would do math like for like real on the ground. What is a percentage of a tip that you have to give? And what does that mean? Like giving tips outside, because in Europe you don't give tips versus in the USA you do. And in Latin America, like talking about those things and using on real life skills, that for me was most important. I later found that to be more important um, for my charge, rather than trying to meet a curriculum which was to me impossible, which I later found. I tried so hard, and so I just props to you, Dea, for attempting this in whichever way. And it is a journey. Anybody who is raising a child, another human being, a little person, as I say, it's just a challenge. And I find this with my nephew every day that we read. It's not reading because of something that he has to do at school. It's we read these books. Like right now, I have this anarchist book that he has to read with me. He doesn't have to, but we do this together, and it's like searching stuff up at the library. And like here's like not following rules and stuff. Like it's constant assessing of what you're going to help your child, right? Like for them to sort of pick out how they want to learn along the way. That is a challenge. Then I just commend you so much, and any person who is doing this and judging or whatever. I've just learned you have to find your way with your child. It is a challenge,
Yeah.
and I struggled a lot in trying to balance that out, in connecting with other families that would later drop us, not because I feel they didn't like us, but because they just couldn't keep up with us on like the journey of independence learning, or me wanting to take them outside of SF and travel abroad with going out, or even just going to another state and exposing them to things, or taking them to protests. I would take Saul to a lot of protests and skipping school for that, and people are getting in trouble for it. It was just constant judgment. So any parent, any caregiver, any guardian, it is a challenge. So I'll keep up the good work, and you'll find your way there. You'll find your way,
Yeah.
and
I
yeah.
don't follow
Anything that comes
curriculums.
up for you? Yeah.
I don't follow curriculums. That's so I'm saving I'm saving my time and my frustration. I don't follow curriculums.
And one question I would have then, and sort of follows off of what Eduardo just said, is that now it's been it's like just over 3 months now that your son has been in a different schooling educational experience than what he was all previously.
Yeah.
I have two questions. One, how would you assess what the effect has been on your son, and how would your son assess what this experience has been on them? Like, and how would those differ, and how would they be alike?
For me, I guess the assessment that I have for him, how he's doing in terms of the emotional part more than anything, is through the art. When I see him playing more music and kind of creating more, when I see him painting, drawing, I mean, picking up again what he really loved to do before the pandemic, because during the pandemic, they were forced to be on the screen so much that they stopped doing everything that is very creative, right? So that's one of my ways to assess on the emotional part and how he feels. Of course, I think he missed the socialization part, but he is. I guess to compensate that, as soon as he knows that his friends are out of school, after when they are getting off earlier from school or during the weekends, he's the one that's organizing his friends. He's the one that is organizing them to go out, to do things. I mean, he's the one that's having the initiatives. He's the one that is basically leading. No, when he does a project, he is bringing all the friends together, so he has the friends following him and doing things. He has that socialization. But I can see that he really wants to be, of course, wants to be with friends and with more kids around. And for myself, I mean, seeing him happy is, what is my sign. I mean, I know that I am doing the right thing. And when I hear more parents what is happening, and when I hear the cases of violence that are happening at schools, that's another sign for me that I am doing the right thing, because I don't have to worry about that anymore. When I see the data, the recent data about math and English, I know that's the time that I'm spending with my kid, helping him to do some progress that could be more than if he could be at school, because at school I couldn't know what he is really doing it, and he's just wasting the time. And another way to assess is how much I am learning myself. Yeah. And then right now we are, as Eduardo said, for writing, for English, it's hard because I myself have to keep learning English, right? I cannot teach English. I have to keep learning English. So we have some science magazines, and what we are doing every day is picking an article. He picks one, and I pick one, and we start just writing about the article, copying it right now. And then through that, we are learning, and then we are sharing what he's learning, what about his articles, and what about my article about the science. Yeah, and by looking for more resources, listening to other people, documentaries, videos. I mean, I think we are. What the system is doing, what the government were trying to do, and they are forcing to have the education, digital education. If you take the education on your own hands, if you choose this path, it can be very liberating, because you can choose to learn what you want to learn, and you can use all the tools that we have now, even the digital tools, to learn what you want, and combine the digital tools with everything that you can find in the community. I mean, it's an opportunity that can really open many doors to you to keep learning, right?
I'm curious about what you think about this journey. Like where you've been, where you're at now. Like, did you expect to be doing this right now? Like in terms of your kids' education. Like how much did these last 3 years, 2.5 years, or were you always, questioning sort of the system?
I always was questioning the system. I mean, that was basically the reason why I started Integrarte, but it was starting with the Spanish, the the commitment to have my kid being bilingual, to learn Spanish as his first language, and then about the Latin American culture. I mean, I didn't want him to lose his connection with his roots, with myself, right? Because I have seen what the impact of that is. I have seen what happens with the kids, with the Latino kids that are losing that they don't have the language, they don't have the culture anymore. The damage and the negative impact that has. I didn't want that for him and for myself. So it started right there. And then and also the reason for me doing all of that is because I really wanted to be there all the time in this process. When I came here at the beginning, I couldn't understand why, if we have the biggest community here, super big community, Latino community, and we only have 2% of the Latinos going to the university level, right? It's like, what's going on? What happens? I mean, I know we are not. It's not that we are not intelligent. It's not that we cannot do it. What is that is happening here? And obviously, it's the system that is keeping us there. But how? I didn't understand how. Now I know. Now I know because basically I was with my kid going through every, step of the process and learning about the education system. And as Andy said, during the pandemic and after the pandemic, it's just basically, completely exposed. And if you don't want to see it, it's just, it's just you because they were completely exposed on what they are doing. It's a segregation system that has been in place.
So I'm definitely listening. This means a lot to me, to us, for our future, considering where we think this world is going. And so, I've told you this before in a previous show. You remind me a lot of powerful mom, my aunt, and and so I'm listening, and I'm looking forward to learning from your lessons and maybe being part of a community in the future. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, and really appreciate it. And I mean,
yep, that's the reason why we move things. Yep.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably revisit this when we get the program with that secret garden stuff moving along, and we see how it goes, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Yep, sure. I'm looking forward to.
And for writing, I just recommend letter writing. It always helps. I would feel like, oh, someone's going to look at my work. And I started my nephew with just finger painting his hand onto a postcard paper and sending it off. And then now he's writing letters slowly. So anyhow, that's just something little things. I'm curious to know how it goes for you, Dea, and you keep sharing with us. We're going to connect. I got your message there. So we're going to connect. I really do appreciate this conversation. It's been enlightening. And I'm also glad that Andy's working alongside with you. And thank you very much for sharing with us on What's Left.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me again, okay?
All right. And then I remind people that today is the day, on the 21st of November, that the occupation of Alcatraz happened by Native Americans on the island. And I forget what year. It's in my calendar somewhere. But anyhow, I saw that on the date. So this week, I think they're going to be the Alcatraz occupation ceremony on Treasure Island, on Alcatraz Island, if anyone is interested in the Bay Area. All right. Well, that does it for this week's episode. What's Left is a weekly political podcast / channel challenging the mainstream left. We post information about our topics and our guests in the episode notes, wherever you found this episode, or on our blog at what-s-left.webnode.com. You can find past episodes to this podcast channel there and connect with us. I remind folks, if you like anything you've heard here, please subscribe, rate, review, turn on notifications to any of our platforms on Spotify, iTunes Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, Bitchute, Odysee, YouTube, Rumble, or Telegram. You can find our blog and any of those links in the episode notes where you found this episode. If you would like to give us feedback about something you've heard or suggest something for us to cover, contact us through our blog. And you can find our social media handles as at Don Eduardo Barca and at ZepDKE on Instagram, and Jess's Twitter handle as at JHomie89. That's it. I'm Eduardo Barca with co-hosts Jessica, Kenny Cepeda, and Andy Lipson. Thank you very much, Dea, for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Ciao.
Sure. Ciao.